In 1993, a luxury apartment in Kuala Lumpur collapsed. Not because of an earthquake, not because of a bomb, but because the hill behind it gave way. 48 people were killed, mothers, children, families who thought they'd made it, who believed that buying a home on a hill meant safety and not danger. And this wasn't just a building that fell, it was the moment that Malaysia learned how fragile our progress really was. This is the story of how an entire tower came down and how the people who lived there lost everything, twice. In the late 1980s, Ampang was one of KL's fastest growing suburbs. Nestled against lush green hills, the Highland Towers were built as a symbol of modern living. There were 3 12-story condominiums overlooking the city. Developers sold it as luxury, fresh air, mountain views, and minutes from downtown. Behind the towers stood a steep hill, and on paper it was safe. Engineers designed the retaining wall and drainage system to control rainwater, but over the years, roads were cut, trees were cleared, and a new housing project began right on top of that hill. That would prove fatal. The problem was what geologists call colluvial soil, a mix of loose clay, sand, and rocks sitting on top of older, harsher earth. When it's dry, it seems stable, but when it rains too long, the water seeps in, turning it into liquid mud. In the 10 days before the collapse, KL recorded continuous rainfall, the heaviest in years. Meanwhile, the housing project above Highland Towers had built unapproved drainage. Some pipes were cracked, others leaked directly into the ground, and slowly, the hillside behind Block 1 began to shift a few centimeters at a time. Residents noticed cracks in their walls, doors wouldn't close properly, but by then, the damage was already deep underground. Then came the 11th of December 1993. It had already rained for 10 straight days, and at 1:35 PM, a loud crack split the air. Within seconds, 100,000 tons of mud and debris, the weight of 200 jumbo jets, came crashing down. The retaining wall failed and the ground liquefied. Block 1, which was 12 stories high, tilted forward, broke in half, and collapsed like a deck of cards. Neighbors watched in disbelief as entire floors pancaked on top of one another, and people trapped inside screamed for help, but the hill was still moving. Rescue teams rushed from across the country, firefighters, soldiers, volunteers, but the rain wouldn't stop, and the mud was knee-deep. The most haunting story was one of Umi, a mother found alive 4 days later, holding her baby Nur Hidayah. She had survived by breastfeeding her child in the darkness, surrounded by rubble. Out of 49 people trapped, only 2 survived. Malaysia had never seen a disaster like this, and the nation watched in horror as the towers that once symbolized success turned into a graveyard. The investigation revealed a chain of negligence. The developer, Highland Properties Sdn Bhd, the local council, MPAJ, and the engineers who built the retaining wall. And then there was the new housing project above, which diverted water downhill, directly into the slope behind the towers. The soil wasn't just weak, it was oversaturated, and the wall that was supposed to hold it back wasn't built to handle that much pressure. Engineers later said that the collapse could have been prevented if only the drainage had been maintained, and if only warnings had been heeded. But what followed next was even more tragic, not geological, but financial. In the years that followed, 139 surviving residents and families took the case to court. They sued everyone they could, the developer, the council, and even the bank that financed the project. The bank back then was AmFinance, known as AmBank. They hadn't built the towers, they didn't approve the drainage or design, but they had funded it. They issued home loans, releasing money to the developer at every construction stage. And the residents argued that AmFinance should have ensured that the project's approvals were in order and that the land was stable and the building legal before even releasing their loans. And after years of court battles, AmFinance made a decision. In 2004, they paid 52 million ringgit to settle all claims from 139 residents. Not as an admission of guilt, but as a way to end the lawsuits quietly. There was one condition though. The residents had to sign over their property titles and the ownerships of Block 2 and 3, the 2 surviving towers. And in the end, they had lost their homes, their loved ones, and now their property. And the towers were handed to the bank. The same institution that financed them now owned their ruins. And the irony is that the victims had to sell the wreckage of their dreams to the very bank that helped build them. Today, the remains of Highland Towers still stand, hidden behind barbed wire and overgrown trees, 2 empty skeletons, slowly swallowed by the forest. Over the years, there were talks of redevelopment, luxury condos, memorial parks, and even affordable housing, but nothing ever happened. The land still belongs to the bank, and the ruins still belong to our memory. 30 years later, Malaysia still builds on hills. We still hear of landslides, Bukit Antarabangsa, Batang Kali, the same pattern and the same rain. Highland Towers wasn't a one-off disaster. It was the start of a warning that we refuse to listen to. Because in Malaysia, we tend to forget fast, but the land doesn't. The hill that ate a city still waits.